Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to Just Because Wrestling. We are here on not the eve, I was going to say the eve. Oh, no, it is the eve. It is Friday.
Yes,
My head.
yes.
Yeah, it's the eve of Impact Hard to Kill. And for the first time ever, we promised you we were going to bring guests on um, after episode 100. And we are joined by Andy the Taxman, who was the former host of um, the six-sided pod, which he graciously let us appear on for. Was it Slammiversary 2018 we reviewed? I was trying to think.
I think it was.
I believe that was the show. Yeah.
Yeah, so yeah, 2018, that long ago. It didn't feel that long ago, but he stopped for a while, and now he's back with his new show, Grappling with Canada. So Andy, do you want to tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah. So, like you said, I used to host the Six-Sided podcast. That was an impact-centric podcast. Unfortunately, two small children and the married life kind of got in the way, so I stepped away from it for a while, and I started thinking about podcasting again, but I didn't really want to get back into what I was doing before, and I was thinking about different things, and I've really been on a big history kick lately, and that's where I had got the inspiration for the new show, which is, like you said, is called Grappling with Canada. So essentially what it is a look back at the history of either prominent people, prominent events, or prominent promotions in the history of Canada, how they relate to current events, going in through the history of either the subject or person or whatever. So, for example, we released episode 1 earlier this month on Stu Hart and Stampede Wrestling, which was I think we almost had a 4-hour show. It was something else, but yeah, that was basically my idea, was doing something that is looking at a part of the market that is really underserviced. A lot of people know about the American wrestling scene because, as we know, WWE, with their revisionist history, it does a very good job of covering that, in quotations. A lot of people are very familiar with the British wrestling scene, obviously with World of Sport and everything like that. But to me, it just seems like Canada is overlooked historically speaking, and I just kind of wanted to start a program that was going to kind of look at what the history of Canada means, not only to Canada but also to the international wrestling audience.
Yeah, it's interesting you say that because obviously the three, well, Japan as well, but like they're kind of the four pillars of wrestling, like the USA, Japan, the UK, and Canada. But like Canada, as you said, it seems to be kind of the redheaded stepchild of that four, where they're kind of just brushed to the side, which is like kind of insane when you think about it, like the amount of wrestling talent they've produced and continue to produce. So it's interesting that someone is bringing this information to the forefront, and it's about time,
It's probably. I think it's probably because Joe, a lot of Canadian wrestlers, obviously, when you think about like the all-time great Canadian wrestlers, you obviously think of your Bret Harts, your Owen Harts, your Chris Jerichos, your Chris Benoit's. The all these guys, they kind of broke out then on the American circuit and had their biggest victories and their biggest matches in WWE, WCW.
Yeah.
So I think that's probably why Canada kind of gets forgotten about, because a lot of these Canadian guys get integrated into the States, and it's just kind of like lumped together as one. Whereas
and even at that, a lot of them end up living and gaining American citizenship, like the likes of Christian and Chris Jericho and stuff. All, if I'm right, I think I'm right. Anyway, I think Christian lives in Tampa.
Like, sure, one of Jericho's many gimmicks, but one of his gimmicks was like he denounced being Canadian, and he's like, I'm from New York, and like so yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting. And going back to that Stu Hart episode, I listened to it last night, and it was a great episode, by the way. I think it was a great way to kick off the show. And did you, Andy? Did you kind of go back and forth as to whether that would be the launch episode, or was it always going to be Stu Hart was going to be the episode you start with?
To me, Stu Hart was kind of the natural go-to. Obviously, with the the biggest connections being, fans' relationships with watching Brett and Owen. To me, it was just like, it was such a touchstone person, and then Stampede Wrestling is such a touchstone territory for someone like myself. Like, I'm in my mid-30s, so I was around for, Bret Hart's run, his entire run, essentially, and Owen Hart's unfortunate, his run was cut short, as we all know. But so for myself, I was very familiar with that aspect, the kind of the tail end of Stampede, and then forward. So I figured that people my age, they have the connection right to the Harts, but maybe they don't know the backstory and the history of how Stu came to be a promoter in Canada, kind of his backstory, and then the backstory as well of Stampede Wrestling.
Yeah.
So that, to add a long-winded answer to your question, but yeah, Stu Hart always in my head was like that was the most tangible one. That was the one to go to for the first episode.
Yeah, it kind of makes the sense, because like Stu Hart is looked as kind of this father figure of Canadian wrestling. I think you can't have a conversation with Canadian wrestling without discussing the influence Stu Hart had on the entire industry, and especially in that that section of the world. So yeah, it made sense that you started with that, and I thought it was a great episode to kick off. Without I don't know if you want to reveal some of the episodes you have in the plan, but is there? Well, okay. First, do you want to reveal some of the episodes you have coming up, or do you want to keep that a secret?
Well, I think I'll give your listeners the so don't tell anybody, all your listeners there. Let's keep this. We're all a group of friends here now. We're all well acquainted now. Your listeners know who I am, and it's very nice to meet all of you. So we're gonna keep this between friends. We're a friendship here.
Yeah.
So I actually just finished recording last night. I had a couple of guests on for our episode 2, which is looking at Dino Bravo.
Ooh, that is an interesting topic as well.
Yes,
yeah, that
especially coming off the Dark Side of the Ring episode as well.
Yeah, especially because it's topical with the Dark Side of the Ring, and that's actually a fascinating concept, like a fascinating story of the even the just taking the circumstances of his death into in a vacuum. It's an interesting concept, but I imagine you get into, like the Stu Hart episode, you don't just focus on that. Do you get into his kind of whole career? Is it?
Yeah. So that one, and I'm very fortunate. I have Pat LaPrade on that episode, and he was really the driving force behind the Dark Side of the Ring episode. He did a lot of the translating for Evan and Jason.
Yeah.
Because they're dealing with people from Quebec. They don't speak English. Very many of them, right? Quebec is a very interesting province in Canada, and we kind of get into that in the episode as well, and what the Montreal sports scene itself is like, how different it is. Even like, I'm from Winnipeg, you idiots. but if for me, it's eye opening as well, because we have a very large French Canadian and Métis. We have actually the largest outside of Quebec French Canadian Métis population in Canada. But even still, for me, it's interesting to be learning about what the culture is like there in terms of wrestling fans, and then also as sports fans. And that's something we really get into. But yeah, it's not nice to talk about. I know the end of his life, and we do unfortunately discuss it because it's part of the story, I'm sad to say, but
yeah.
We go a very well in depth of his rise, just and how he was able to kind of make himself. He's literally the Hulk Hogan of Montreal, and we really go into that aspect of it, not just him as a wrestler, but him as a personality, and where did Dino Bravo actually begin being Dino Bravo, and how he could never shake that after the fact. He just, once he was Dino Bravo, he was Dino Bravo. There was no previous person formerly known as, right? It was just, that's who he was. So it was very eye opening for me.
Yeah, it's interesting when these people, like, Dino Bravo being such a big star in the US, and when they cross, or in Canada, and when they cross over to the US, and like most of the time when they go to, at the time, either WWE or WWF and WCW, they like, for such big stars that they were, it doesn't cross over, and a lot of that has got to do with the US management, Vince and whoever running WCW at the time, can't, like, doesn't really know what to do with him, and that kind of seems like what happened with Dino Bravo. And I think the same can be said for Conan, with Conan and his relationship with Mexico, and he just never reached the heights in the US, which, you know, sometimes fascinates me in terms of when you see, like, we see a lot of wrestlers here in the UK and on the independents, and you look at them and they're big stars, and for some reason it doesn't cross over to the US audience or like US management for some strange reason. But yeah, that like the it's interesting, the crossover between, for when Dino Bravo crosses over and goes to Vince eventually. So I'll be interested to hearing about that.
Yeah, like, you could even see it in, like, kind of, like, you even take it in like modern context. If you look at the likes of, like, Shinsuke Nakamura, like a guy who is, like, revered as a god essentially in Japan,
Yeah.
and, like, it came over to the US, and, you know, he probably had a bit more success than the likes of, you know, Dino Bravo and Conan in the States, but, like, he, you know, still, you know, compared to what he was in his native country, you know, it's there, it's like chalk and cheese, like, so it's
and the same can be said, and we'll probably get into this a bit later, but the same can be said for Kenny Omega and his Japan, and his like, it's starting to happen a bit now, but it took a while for him to cross over to the US audience. So that'll be interesting to see. Andy, one thing I did want to ask you about, and you can shut me down if I'm peeking a bit too far behind the curtain here, but when you discuss Montreal, and, you know, when we're talking about wrestling in Canada, the inevitable elephant in the room comes up about Montreal and the Montreal Screwjob. And I was interested when I found out the like the concept of your show, and I was thinking, like, oh, there's a lot of meat on the bone and a lot of topics you could cover, but I want to get your thought on Montreal, because from one standpoint, from my perspective, is that Montreal has been covered from head to toe a million times, and putting myself in your shoes, I'd be kind of debating whether do I do the Montreal episode?
yeah, has it been overdone?
Has it been overdone? And also, can you at the same time have a show about wrestling in Canada without discussing it? It's a strange one. I wanted to get your thought on that.
Well, in terms of has it been overdone to death? Maybe, for sure, parts of it. So that was the one thing that I really tried to be cognizant of doing this program as opposed to the earlier Six-Sided podcast. I wanted to make this program accessible to even non-wrestling fans. That's why we spent so much time, and I had a fantastic guest like Heath on for the Stu Hart episode to really dive into the man who was Stu Hart, not Stu Hart the promoter, but Stu Hart the father. Who was he? What did he feel? What was he like? What was going on in his mind, right? And same thing with the Dino Bravo episode. Again, everybody, this is between all of us, but same thing. We really establish what his personal life was, right? What his relationship was to his daughter, what his relationship was to his friends. And we're going to hypothetically, in quotation marks, put an if I were to cover Montreal, I would like to cover the human aspect of it. Yes, it doesn't matter what side of the aisle you're on, whether Brett screwed Brett or Vince screwed Brett. Personally, obviously, I'm a huge Bret Hart fan, so you kind of know where I fall on that one. But if I was going to do an episode on the Montreal Screwjob, I would want to focus that episode on the people surrounding that unfortunate series of events. Not so much the in the ring, what happened. We all know that. We've all seen Wrestling with Shadows. Not all of us. Again, I'm trying to do this program to where, non-wrestling fans can just step in and go with it. But
Yeah.
I would want to really go into the interpersonal relationships, who meant what to who was present, what was their perspective. Has it been done to death? Long story short, yes. Is there meat on the bone? Absolutely. And is there a way to get a different personal perspective? I think so. And it's something I've thought about. I am leery to approach it, but it is definitely something that I've thought about, and it's something that I'm interested to see if I can put, my take on this program and kind of mold it to a Montreal episode.
Yeah, well, thanks for that. Thanks for answering that. Because it was something that was playing on my mind. Because I like to put myself in the shoes of if I was to do it. Like, I was thinking, like, how would I even start with this? But like, I like the concept of that you're telling the story to a non-wrestling fan also. So that makes a lot of sense. That it would be interesting to break it down into kind of layman's terms about how this is kind of sacred in wrestling, and what happened and transpired that night, is breaking a cardinal sin in wrestling. So it is an interesting concept, and it was just something I was curious about. So thank you for that.
Of course.
Yeah.
Is there anything else, Billy, on your end that you wanted to talk about or ask Andy about in terms of the Grappling with Canada podcast?
Like, I suppose, my question really was, I know you're kind of the whole basis behind the podcast is kind of, the history of Canadian wrestling. I'm just wondering, I mean, you mightn't even know yourself, but I'm just wondering if you've mapped out on, like, are you going to go up as far as, like, kind of say modern history in Canadian wrestling, like the likes of, Chris Jericho and even like the likes of Kenny Omega? Or are you going to focus on, Stampede Wrestling and the kind of the foundations of Canadian wrestling that has, sprouted into what we know today?
That's a fantastic question. And I'll give you guys another little peek behind the curtain, but not too much because I don't want to give everything away. But
you're spoiling us here. You're spoiling us.
I know. But once again,
you can just say no.
On the DL, but no. Episode 3 is going to be on a recent Canadian female wrestler who has a prominent position in a wrestling company. And I'm going to leave it at that. I'm going to let your imaginations run wild. But in terms of modern wrestlers, yes, that is something that I will be touching on. That was kind of, it kind of ties into the Dino Bravo, because this is it's a heavy episode. I had a hard time recording it because it's the end it's heartbreaking, right? For what his wife went through, what his daughter went through, it's horrible, right?
Yeah.
So episode 3, I didn't, obviously Stu Hart has passed away, but he's been gone for 18 years or so at this point, I believe, if my math is correct. And then Dino obviously met a tragic end. So I wanted episode 3 to be somebody who's still with us, right? Who's still very relevant in the quote unquote modern age of wrestling. So that was kind of my thought process there. But
yeah, fair enough. Yeah, cool. I'll look forward to episode 3 then and see who you're alluding to, because off the top of my head, I can't think of anyone who's
I was trying to think as well. I think you've caught us there now. You've caught our wrestling knowledge. I feel like you've had this plan of like when you're going to reveal all these episodes, and we've just ruined your your plan by poking and prodding. But
it's what's the word I'm looking? It's a pleasant forcefulness trying to get the information out of me. So,
but yeah. So coming off the grappling with Canada, we'll move on to what you originally and what we originally knew you as and for was your love for Impact Wrestling, and for someone who's been a supporter of Impact Wrestling for like as long as you have, it must be a good feeling for you to see the kind of rejuvenation they're getting currently with the kind of amalgamation with AEW. So talk to us a little bit about how you reacted originally to that and how you feel since as it's taking place.
So really, you can kind of trace the machinations of this back to 2017 or so, when Impact was showing a willingness to work with international companies like Pro Wrestling Noah. They're working with the Crash, AAA. They've really tried to branch out and establish these inter-promotional connections, but nothing in America. Yeah. Fast forward now, you have the connections with Kenny Omega and Don Callis. Obviously, there's massive connections with Winnipeg itself, between Don and Jericho, between the Asper family, who owns a majority share of the Fight Network, which owns obviously majority share of Anthem and Impact Wrestling. So yeah, this has kind of been there's been the seeds planted, but I'm beyond thrilled for how they've been able to actually make this thing come together, because let's face it, nobody saw it coming. There's not one journalist, there's not one whoever, nobody saw Kenny Omega, and Don Callis joining up and him not jumping ship but coming over to the flagship Impact program. It just, nobody saw it coming. It caught everybody off guard, and I thought it was really, really well done.
Because if you think back to kind of 2 years ago when Kenny left New Japan, and it was kind of this will he won't he with WWE and AEW, and then around that time, if you remember, Don Callis did an interview and he said that his goal was to get Kenny to Impact Wrestling, and people kind of laughed and kind of turned their nose at that, being like he was just trying to grab headlines or whatever. But we said it a few weeks ago, that bastard did it.
Yes, he did.
Which fair play to Don Callis. And
he's calling himself the Invisible Hand. I'm pretty sure that's not his gimmick. He's been he's probably been pulling strings since the very beginning. You know what I mean? And I probably wouldn't be shocked if it came out down the line that this potential relationship between I don't want to say AEW and Impact, but Kenny Omega and Impact has probably been in the works since day dot, since Kenny's contract with New Japan expired. I would imagine this has been something that they've been trying to put together for a while.
Yeah.
And
there's always go on. Sorry.
No, I was gonna say it was probably it came down probably to when do we do it? Do we do it when there's crowds back, or do we just do it when Kenny wins the title? Or it's one of those things. I think that was just it was a when, not an if. But obviously, unbeknownst to everyone else except Don Callis and Kenny Omega.
And Tony Khan.
And Tony Khan.
As much as he'd like you to think that he didn't know what was going on. But it's funny to go back and think about that, the point you made about the Invisible Hand, and to think that Don Callis was the guy who made the Kenny Jericho match at Wrestle Kingdom happen at the time as well. So he's always plotting. It's he's a savvy businessman. I'll give him that, Don Callis. Yeah. So for you, Andy, you must be thrilled, because I think it for someone like yourself who's supported Impact all this time, it must be like when you support a sports team through their dark days, and then all of a sudden they're starting to win. So you must be happy with the way Impact Wrestling is looking right now.
Yeah, for me, it's more of it's like that. It's the about time feeling, right? Because they've been putting on a pretty consistent product for the last couple of years now. There's things that I don't necessarily agree with that they do, but again, you're never going to watch a promotion and love top to bottom everything. But what they do, or what they have done, I don't want to say do, but what they have done in that program in the last 2 years has been really tremendous with the amount of layered storylines that they have running through, with the amount of talent that they've been able to, kind of cycle in and out and without getting stale, right? You're not seeing the same matches every week in and out. It's not 50-50 booking. It's not a lot of repetitiveness. You're getting common threads that run from months to years. Perfect example of that, I'm sure, is one of the matches that we're going to talk about today at Hard to Kill. But for me, it's more, it's just, finally they're getting their foot in the door, and they're getting a little bit more of the recognition of the mainstream wrestling fan. Hey, if it takes, it doesn't matter what it takes, in my opinion, right? But if it took a partnership with AEW to do it, then so be it. That's fantastic. Whatever gets them more exposure, whatever gets them more looks from a mainstream wrestling fan, it can only be viewed as positive, in my opinion.
Yeah, and that's what's interesting about it as well, because like I've watched Impact now the last kind of since the first night Kenny Omega turned up on the bus and stuff. I've been watching Impact consistently since then, and like it's like you said, it's been a consistent show, and the storylines, there's a thread throughout the storylines, and like you can't say the same about Raw or SmackDown these days, and like they're pulling in like strong viewership. I know like the USA and Fox wouldn't agree that it's strong, but compared to other wrestling companies, it's strong. And like I think at this moment, like Impact is this kind of hidden gem, and it's more about the lack of distribution on Access TV than it is about the quality of the programming. So I'd be interested to see with the AEW deal and getting more eyes on the product, would it open Impact Wrestling up to better distribution channels? So and like, which they deserve, because you're right, it is about time, because their show has been really, really consistent, and it's been a good watch, an easy watch these last couple of weeks. So I'll be interested to see what happens in the near future with Impact.
Yeah, I mean, like I've had a weird complicated relationship with Impact for a lot of my life, because like as do a lot of people, but because
you're not the only one.
Yeah, but no, I know, but I remember like when I was younger, obviously I was I'm a wrestling fan my whole life, but the thing with WWE is that like I never had the channels it was on. Like I never had, like, it was always on, like, box office and all that kind of stuff that I never had. But for some reason, I remember literally the first time ever, I was out in my kitchen, and we had a TV in our kitchen, and I was just flicking through the channels one night, and I came onto Spike TV, and it was just said Impact, TNA Impact Wrestling. And I remember being like, huh, wrestling? What's going on?
Hold on there a second. How the hell did you have Spike TV? I don't even have Spike TV now.
No, this was just, I don't know, maybe back in the day,
what cable provider were you with?
No, obviously a better one.
Yeah. Talk to my parents about that.
Yeah, it must have been no, but like obviously there must have been a different deal back in whatever year it was, and early 2000s anyway. And what's it called? I remember like I flicking it on and being like, what is this? Probably some crap wrestling show that they're like not even real wrestlers. And turn on, there's Kurt Angle and Sting, and like I'm like, what's going on? Like, that's where Kurt Angle went. Because like back then, obviously, I was too young to understand, the ins and outs, and kind of there was no such thing as like going onto Twitter and seeing that Kurt Angle's contract ended in WWE in 2006 and whatever. Like, but, so like when Kurt Angle left WWE, I was like, Kurt Angle's gone. He vanished. He doesn't exist anymore. And then obviously when I saw it, like it opened up a whole new thing of like, introduced me to the likes of Samoa Joe, to AJ Styles, to the Motor City Machine Guns, and plenty of others. And seeing all those guys who are like top level wrestlers and be in a company that has been shot in its own foot so many times and have almost been their own worst enemy a lot of the times. Like it's great to see them finally getting there. And I think since we did our last episode with you, Andy, like I think from like that time frame from like around 2017, 2018 to now, Impact has provided one of the most consistent wrestling shows, currently in the current landscape. They have one of the best women's rosters, probably besides NXT, I would say, in the whole world. And besides obviously like the likes of Stardom and stuff that are like completely women, but
yes,
and like they've produced some quality matches, they've produced some quality characters and quality storylines, and they've continuously been like the little company that could kind of thing, like, and like they keep, we call them the cockroaches of the wrestling world, because they don't die, they will not go away. And every year when we do our like end of year predictions and stuff for the following year, like more often than not, one of us will say that Impact falls or Impact gets bought out or something, like. And every year when we go back and review it,
I think 2021's show was the first show we've gone without saying Impact will either fold or it'll be bought out by someone.
Yeah, because we came to our senses that it was just like, it's not going away.
Every year.
Yeah, it's here to stay. And like, say what you want about them, but they put on quality shows. Their pay-per-views, especially, like their like Slammiversary and Bound for Glory. But well, not so much Bound for Glory, the last Bound for Glory, but Slammiversary nearly the last 3 or 4 years has been one of the best wrestling shows of the year. And yeah, I'm looking forward to the show this tomorrow.
Yeah, so without further ado, we might as well get into it, because I know, Andy, you've a life to get back to, and you can't spend all day talking to us marks. But
let's not kid yourselves. I would love to do that, however.
Yeah.
Marks. All of us, we're all marks for wrestling, right? That's I don't find that as a derogatory term or anything like that.
Oh,
we're all,
no.
You know what I mean? So
we say it as a term of endearment.
We say
more so.
Yeah, give me a goddamn T-shirt. Let's do that.
But so we'll get into it. So we'll just run down. There's 8 matches on the main card. So we'll start with Rosemary and Crazy Steve taking on Tennille Dashwood and Caleb with a K. Like, as we saw, Crazy Steve return to Impact this week. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see the return of the K, and up with Tennille Dashwood and Caleb. What do you think, Andy? Who do you have here for this?
Once again, like you said, it's interesting to see, kind of the reformation of Decay, obviously minus Abyss, but I'm not a massive fan of intergender wrestling. However, if you're gonna have intergender wrestling, Rosemary, I think, is the woman that you want to be involved in a match like that. I think she's incredibly talented, not just because she lives like 20 kilometers north of where I live either. I just want to make that perfectly clear. But no, I'm looking forward to this match. Do you want a prediction or
a prediction? Give us a prediction.
So yeah, I'm thinking Decay gets the win. I'm kind of hoping that Crazy Steve gets the pin on Caleb Conley.
Yeah.
But that's my personal aversion a little bit to intergender wrestling. So that's my
Yeah,
prediction anyway.
yeah, like it kind of makes the most sense now that you've put the K back together, and like I think the kind of how would you say, the team, well, for lack of a better term, the team of Tennille Dashwood and Caleb can take a loss like that. More so Caleb can. So I think you're probably right there with Crazy Steve getting the pin on Caleb.
Yeah, I mean, I would agree as well with the fact that, like, because I think I would say, like I just said before, like, Impact's women's division is one of their strongest assets, and like I would be kind of more wary about protecting Rosemary and Tennille Dashwood in this match. So I would rather neither of them were involved in the fall, and that it was Crazy Steve pinning Caleb Conley. Plus, I just want to see Crazy Steve get a win because he's blind. And it's great to see a blind guy wrestle so well.
Yeah, he's the Ray Charles of wrestling. But, so we'll so we'll move on to Ethan Page versus the Karate Man.
Oh, I don't want this match.
Tell us why.
Like, okay, right. So I'm all for, like, stupid, silly wrestling the majority of the time, right? And I'm all for, like, cinematic matches and video trickery and, ways and means of doing it, right? But when they tried to do, like, an alter ego for Ethan Page, and they tried Joe, what this is. This match has been ruined for me from the off because of Josh Matthews. Because that guy is the poor man's Michael Cole, and that is the worst thing you could probably be. And
because Michael Cole's a poor man something else. Like, poor man's Michael Cole is quite something.
Like the first episode of Impact where they set this up, it was like, Ethan Page came up from under the ring in his Karate Man attire. And, it was like Josh Matthews was trying to make it like this such a serious, like, thing. And it was like, that's the Karate Man. That's the Karate Man. And it was pure, like, just, yeah, you're saying Karate Man. Like this, the fact that you're actually calling that just immediately denotes anything else you say after that sentence. And, like, it's Ethan Page in a bandana and a pair of short shorts. It's not like he's the Fiend. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. I don't know how this match is going to go. There's been talk as well that Ethan Page is his contract's apparently nearly up with Impact, and he's had interest from other companies, and why not have his last match be against himself? So
who goes over though? Because they're both leaving technically.
I would say the Karate Man goes over because I would say he, like, obviously because he knows karate, and that's just something close to my heart. But, like, it's also because he'd probably punch him into oblivion or punch him into free agency. I don't know.
Yeah.
The Karate.
Andy, what do you think?
Weird match.
You took everything I was gonna say about. Yeah, this is a tough one, right? I don't understand necessarily putting this one on a pay-per-view. Just it doesn't fit to me. So I don't have much to say outside of what you've already so respectfully said about this match. So I'm going to leave it at that. But I do think that the Karate Man is going to get the win over non-Karate Man in this match.
Well, it does make sense. Like the Karate Man always outdoes the non-Karate Man, so I'd probably go Karate Man as well. But yeah, we'll probably leave that at that because we've said enough. Moving on to one of the most interesting matches on this card, which is the Eddie Edwards versus Sami Callihan Barbed Wire Massacre. Which, that was the match you alluded to earlier, Andy, in terms of long-term booking. I'd imagine anyway. But Eddie Edwards and Sami Callihan are becoming the rivalry of Impact Wrestling over the last 4 or 5 years. So I'm looking forward to this one.
Yeah, I think besides the main event, this is probably the match I'm looking forward to the most.
Yeah.
Yeah. Jack, do you want to tell us first what you think about this match?
See, I go back and forth in this match because I think in terms of when you look at like wrestling rivalries, like kind of big rivalries back in the day, I think people tend to remember the rivalry more so than who won what, and does it like then that means that like whoever takes a loss or whoever wins doesn't really matter that much because people just remember the rivalry fondly. So for me, like this is a tough one to call. I'll probably go Eddie Edwards. Just like basically from a heel babyface dynamic, in these big kind of blow off matches, like the face could and should win. Most of the time anyway. So I'll go Eddie Edwards, but I would not be surprised if Sami Callihan gets the win either way. So I think this is going to be a brutal match either way. Like Barbed Wire Massacre. It's the first Barbed Wire Massacre in TNA in 4 years, I want to say. 4 or 5 years.
I think the last one was LAX, and who were they feuding with?
It was OVE.
Yeah, you're right. OVE. Correct.
Was that the last one it was?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, so
and that was brutal as well.
Yeah, so like this will be obviously it's a match stipulation that fits the feud more than like which is the right way of doing it more than what WWE do, and the feud fits the match stipulation. So yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing this one. Andy, you know about this feud more than either of us do. So if you want to talk about it for a few minutes.
Yeah, just like we were mentioning before, this is something that's been ongoing. I think they've been on again, off again for 3 years now. Because I want to say 2018 is when they really started. It all started with the bat incident, right?
Yeah.
So that was in 2018. In terms of this match, yeah, I'm looking forward to this. It's going to be exactly what you think it's going to be, right? It's going to be brutal. There's going to be juice. It's going to be one of those, right? Not for the squeamish. In terms of a winner, honestly, I'd like to see Sami Callihan get the win because I really don't think that this thing is over, and I don't think that in a match of this magnitude, you can have Eddie go over and not continue the feud. I could be proven wrong. I'm not the invisible hand, but that's the way I see it. I see Sami winning, and I see this thing kind of maybe going on the back burner for a little bit. Maybe something gets written off for an injury for a little bit, and you can kind of let it cool off a bit. But that's what I think. I think Sami wins, and we kind of get a continuation moving forward.
Yeah.
Good. Billy, what do you think?
I'm not again, I'm not sure. It's one of the harder ones to call. Like I said, it's like you guys already hit all the points, like that. Like it's gonna be brutal. It's gonna be bloody. There's gonna be some gnarly spots. I probably want to just like take this this juncture to talk about like how, for me anyway, Eddie Edwards is probably one of the most underrated guys in wrestling, just for the fact that like he totally did a 180 on his character and his like style of wrestling, and his whole thing, his whole package. Off the bat, pardon the pun, of the Sami Callihan incident. And
you meant that.
I didn't actually. It came to my head.
Get out of here with your puns.
But
no, take the credit. Come on, take the credit.
Yeah, I totally meant that. Yeah, but yeah, no, he's turned into this kind of hardcore wrestler, with the kendo stick, and completely changed up his style. And based off, and like when you go back over his career and you realize, he's a former TNA champion, he's a former Ring of Honor champion, he's a former GHC champion, Triple Crown champions in Ring of Honor and TNA. Like he's done more or less everything outside of WWE, and the fact that he's taken this kind of latter half of his career to completely reinvent himself as this kind of crazed Boston psychopath, then like yeah, I mean, I think all credit to him, because it was an unnecessary move, didn't need to be done, but he did it, and it's paid off so far. But as in terms of winner, I don't know. I'm gonna go Eddie Edwards because I think Sammy's a guy who he looks as good in defeat as he does when he wins, and he's a guy who can. I think he, like, when Sammy looks beaten and broken and bloodied, but he's still getting up and he's still coming for more. Like, he looks even more menacing. So, yeah, Eddie Edwards.
Yeah, interesting. I'll rapid fire some of these so we can have time to talk about the main event. So in the 6-man, the Eric Young, Diener, and Joe Doring versus Cousin Jake, Rhino, and Tommy Dreamer. Who do you have, Andy?
I have the Eric Young team.
Yeah,
getting the win. I think Cody's gonna pin Tommy, to be honest.
Yeah, I think Tommy is in this match, and I think Tommy's role now is kind of to take falls in big big pay-per-view matches like that, because Tommy has been around now for a long time, and he's still a name that can get people over for, like, it gives them a big notch on their belt. So I'd be going the team Eric Young as well, for that fact. Billy, what do you think?
Yeah, I go on Team Eric as well, just because they seem to be like the new heel faction on the block. Get a win over, like you said, Tommy Dreamer doesn't need a win. Rhino doesn't need a win. You can make the argument for Jake something, but it's going to be Eric Young.
Yeah. So in the finals of the tag team tournament for the Knockouts Tag Team Championship, Havoc and Neva versus Kira Hogan and Tasha Steelz. Who do you have?
This is a tough one for me, and I've been kind of rolling it back and forth. I think Kira and Tasha are going to win, and I think Kira's going to get the pin. I've been really high on her for the last couple of years. I've really enjoyed her progression as she kind of come into her own here. So that's what I'm looking at.
Yeah. Again, I think like, I would agree with you in terms of Kira Hogan. I think Kira Hogan is a big star in the making, and she has been doing really well the last couple of years as well. So I'd be interesting to see her progress, and hence I think she's someone that you need to get behind as well if you're Impact Wrestling. So I'd go her team as well with Tasha Steelz. Billy, what about you?
I'm agreeing with the two of you as well in the fact I think Kira Hogan and Tasha Steelz take the win here. When they announced this tournament and they announced the teams participating in it, they were kind of one of the only ones that, like, have been a tag team for ages and have been a tag team like they've been established kind of best friends / tag team. Havoc and Nevaeh are kind of like they're established as friends as well, but they're kind of like almost like a mismatch kind of thing. So you could see it where Havoc might turn on Nevaeh after the match, after being, after one of them, after it gets pinned, say. But yeah, I got to go Kira Hogan and Tasha Steelz. They just feel like the natural tag team in this match, and you should probably put your tag titles on a tag team. Let's just hope they do them better than WWE do their women's tag titles.
Well,
they can't do worse.
Yeah, well, WWE's philosophy is let's create tag team or tag team championships and break up all our tag teams. But that makes the most sense. So for the X Division match, the triple threat, Manik, Chris Bray, and Rohit Raju. Billy, who do you have?
This is a tough one, because it's a triple threat. Obviously, break out your Steiner mats and just start, like, working out the odds for every person in this match. But like, I don't know, because I don't think they'll put the. Yeah, thank you, Andy. But I don't think they'll put the title back on Rohit. I mean, the defeat Rohit challenge was pretty funny, but I think it ran its course. Obviously, Manik, aka TJP, is the champion now. But I think Chris Bay is the money guy. I think Chris Bay is the guy who, he'll be one of the future stars of Impact. So I'm going to go for a title change in this one. There's not many title matches on the card. Obviously, one of them is a vacant one. spoiler alert for the other title match. I don't think that title will be changing hands. So I'm going to Chris Bay become new X Division champion.
Yeah, I'm very, very high on Chris Bay. His match with Rich Swann at the last show, the name escapes me. What was the last show?
Genesis?
Genesis? Yeah, Genesis. The show, his match with Rich Swann, I thought was fantastic, and he had they did a tag match as well with in the lead up to that with Moose, and was it Willie Mack was the other one? It was the other competitor in it. I thought that was a fantastic match as well. So I'm really high on Chris Bay, and I agree with you. I think he might take the win. I wouldn't be surprised if TJP / Manic retains and kind of reveals himself then as TJP or whatever. But I could see I think Chris Bay takes the win here. Andy, what about you?
Yeah, I'm in agreement with you guys. I think Chris Bay he's got it right. This guy just oozes charisma.
Yeah.
And I haven't seen a bad match out of him. And this is even going back to, he had a tremendous match at Slammiversary as well. I think that was against Willie Mack, but Jesus, those guys beat the hell of each other. But yeah, I think I'm thinking Chris Bay gets the win here. And I personally, I would really hope that they invest some time into him. I would hate them to have, the same Rascals situation as they had before. They have a top team. In this case, it's a top individual who just oozes charisma, and they just don't see it. I don't know. I hope that doesn't happen. But yeah, I hope Chris Bay gets the title.
Plus, he's only 25. Like, he's ridiculously young. And
oh yeah.
He's a future world champion for sure.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. And probably across many companies as well, I would say.
Yeah, I'd imagine so. So we'll move on to the main event. So
I know, Jack, you forgot the Knockouts title match.
Oh yeah, shit. Sorry. Yeah. So the Knockouts Championship, Deonna Purrazzo versus Taya Valkyrie.
There you go.
Yeah, thanks. Billy, who'd you have for that?
Like I said in my last prediction, I don't think the title's changing hands here. I'm going Purrazzo. She, Impact are obviously incredibly high on her. They put the title on her without her even signing a contract. Last year, she was awarded the Knockout of the Year award and the Wrestler of the Year award from Impact Wrestling as well. So they obviously see, they see dollar signs in Deonna Purrazzo, as do I. I mean, she's fantastic. She's probably the best technical wrestler Impact have. And Taya Valkyrie, she's had her moment in the sun, longest reigning Impact Knockouts champion of all time. She doesn't need to take the belt back. So gotta go Deonna Purrazzo on this one.
Do we know the situation in terms of Taya Valkyrie's contract? Because I know there was.
I think this is constantly debated every year, and obviously now that Morrison is in WWE, people say more and more Taya Valkyrie is going to follow him over. I actually don't. I couldn't tell you off the top of my head when her contract is due up.
Andy, do you know? Do you have any other insight into that?
I think it's, if I'm not mistaken, it's due up in April. I could be wrong, so don't. Screw it. Send your hate tweets to @6_podcast. It's fine, but but I think that's the situation. And you know what? I think she is doing I don't see her going to the WWE, especially with her coming out with the Weary Loca clothing line. To me, it's just because she's gonna have to give that up, right? And why would you do that? So in terms of this match, I got Deonna Purrazzo all day. Has anybody honestly come out of the WWE and had a better impact, no pun intended, in whatever company they joined after, other than her? She's been incredible.
In terms of someone that, they didn't like.
If you contrast, I suppose, their run, but in WWE, she was enhancement talent.
Yeah.
Essentially.
Yeah, in terms of you could argue the likes of Cody Rhodes and stuff have, but but they were used as kind of top stars. But but someone that wasn't even looked at really in WWE and coming out and automatically became a star, Yeah, I think I think you're right. I don't think there's been anyone have
It's
that
been, it's
meteoric rise.
yeah, it's been like she's obviously. I mean, there probably is like guys. There's probably been a few guys like. I know that like the likes of was it Nick Jackson or was it both Young Bucks? One of them had like a dark match on Velocity or something way back when, and like that. I mean, plenty of guys have had like say squash matches on Raw and then gone on to have very successful careers. But
But
like,
these guys
yeah,
aren't signed. Like
yeah, that's my
Diana, they
point.
had
Like,
Diana.
that's my point. Diana Purrazzo was signed. She was an NXT talent, but like she had, I think maybe like 4 or 5 matches in her whole WWE spell, and they were all like enhancement matches, all squash matches, that I can remember anyway. But like they definitely didn't do anything.
I think that I think you're right. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, she didn't do anything of note anyway, and especially compared to what she's doing with Impact, which is like her work she's doing with Impact now is phenomenal, really. Like,
Yeah, it's like you could make the argument that she's been the female wrestler of the year, like in terms of the 12-month calendar since she came in. You could definitely make that. Definitely one of the most consistent. She's been excellent since she's coming over.
like
so yeah,
her match when she won the title, I think. What did she beat Taya for the belt, or was it someone else she beat for the belt?
I thought it was Sue
Jordan
Young.
Grace or Sue Young.
No,
Sue
the
Young?
first time. I know this is her second reign, but the first time she won it.
Jordan Grace she beat.
Oh, you're right. Yes, it was Jordan Grace.
Was that a Slammiversary then?
Yeah. It was Jordan.
That's right.
Grace.
Okay, yeah, that was a hell of a match too.
That was a great match. Like that was amazing. Like, and like Diana Purrazzo proving that like she is one of the best technical wrestlers in the world for my money anyway. She's up there.
Yeah.
So yeah, I would say it would be silly to take the title off her now.
Yeah. So we'll push on to the main event. So the 6-man tag. Originally it was Rich Swann and the Motor City Machine Guns versus Kenny Omega and the Good Brothers. Unfortunately, at the final hour, there has been a change, and Alex Shelley is out of the match, and they've put Moose in instead. So that's an interesting choice, considering Moose is more of a heel on Impact Television, as far as I'm aware. So to put him with the kind of de facto babyface trio, it's interesting. Andy, what do you think about this one?
First, I want to say, I don't know if you guys caught it on Twitter, but Moose sent a tweet to Kenny, and he said it's something along the lines of, yeah, you can wrestle all these 5-star matches, but you've never wrestled a god. And I just fucking, sorry, I didn't mean to swear, but I burst out laughing when I read that. I was like, oh man, Moose is, he's awesome. Who's going to win this match? I have a feeling that that Kenny's going to pull out the win. And I think that, unfortunately, you're going to see Chris Sabin take the loss on this one. That's the only way I think you can get out of this one with a pinfall victory. And I'd really, really, really hope that they don't go the route of DQ. I hate DQ matches to end a pay-per-view. I think they're so counterproductive. So that's kind of my thought.
Right.
Yeah. I kind of agree. I think Kenny pins Rich Swann here, and it sets up the title match. I think that's kind of what this is angling to. Kenny's on his quest for gold, so I think Kenny actually pins the Impact champion here, and it sets up the title match at the next pay-per-view. However, I do think we at some point in this match or afterwards or wherever we'll see the Young Bucks, because they kind of teased on Dynamite that they weren't with Kenny and the Good Brothers. Don Callis kind of swerved them, and the Good Brothers came in and wrestled instead when it was meant to be the Elite wrestling. So I think that was kind of like that's going to be a bait and switch, and I think we'll see the Young Bucks on Impact Wrestling television for the first time in 10 years,
as Generation Me.
Yeah. They'll return as Generation Me.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think we'll see the Young Bucks in, and I think Kenny will pin Rich Swann.
Yeah, Jack, you totally took my prediction.
I read your notes before we came on.
No, I'm in total agreement with you, and I think Kenny, like I can see it in playing on my head, like spine buster to Sabin, big boot to Moose, and then Kenny Omega, one winged angel to Swan, 1, 2, 3, and then holds up the Impact World Championship alongside the AEW World Championship, and stakes his claim essentially. And the thing is, like, when like this all happened, when this all kicked off, and it was like, oh, Kenny Omega is going to be on Impact, whatever. Like, people immediately started spitting out like dream matches, that they want to see. And one that was like, people said it, but they weren't really like considering a dream match, was Kenny Omega versus Rich Swann. They were like, it's not really a dream match. And I'd agree, it's not a dream match. But I think if it happens, I think it'll be a match of the year contender. I think it'll be like, I think Rich Swann has been, yeah, I mean, he had one very big moment of controversy in his career, and I think it's kind of followed him since. I mean, obviously, everything seems to be okay with him now, but like, it's kind of, I think that cloud has kind of hung over him. Now, obviously, he's done a lot of great things since he's been in Impact. He's had a lot of fantastic matches. Now he's the world champion. But I think he could really kind of separate himself from the pack in a way with a match with Kenny Omega, because like Kenny, and like you said earlier in the podcast, Jack, Kenny did lose a bit of his shine when he came over to AEW because just people weren't as familiar with him, I suppose. But like, he is still Kenny Omega. He is still completely capable of having match of the year contender any night of the week. And I think a match between Kenny and Swan would be, I think it would be genuine fireworks, and I'm looking forward to it, whatever that may be, because like you said, the next pay-per-view, Impact like to space out their quote unquote pay-per-views. They do have special shows. Maybe it'll just be the next special show. I don't know, but yeah, I think
I also would tinker with the fact, or with the idea of having it on Impact. Get as much eyes on it as possible.
I mean, when I thought about that's what I was saying. I was like, have it on Impact TV, and just like, why not? Like,
and showcase what Impact has to offer, because as we spoke, and it's kind of coming full circle now, earlier on, was it's all about kind of the distribution and not the lack of quality with Impact. So getting as much eyes on the show and promoting it on TNT and stuff like that would make a lot of sense. So yeah, that we'll probably leave it there. That's the end of Impact or preview for Impact Hard to Kill tomorrow night. Andy, you've been gracious enough to give us an hour, and it's kind of going over that hour now. So we thank you for staying on, and we thank you for coming on to the show and telling us all about your new show and helping us preview tomorrow night's show. So we thank you for that.
Yeah, my pleasure. Anytime, gentlemen.
No problem. So Impact Hard to Kill tomorrow night. Don't ask me the times. I have no idea. All I know is it's super late where we are. So I'm gonna have to sleep in tomorrow morning to make it. So yeah, Andy, will you can just tell us where our viewers can find you and where people can find the podcast?
Yeah, so you can find me on Twitter, and I'll also send your hate tweets to @6_podcast. There you'll find links to my quote unquote website, but tinyurl.com/grappling with Canada. And on there you'll find everything from our YouTube page to RSS feeds for the show. There's also Amazon links which promote books that are part of the podcast. Obviously, the big one being Pain and Passion, the Stampede Wrestling book written by Heath McCoy. You can find the link on there. And once again, @JB6_podcast on Twitter, and I'll look forward to seeing everybody on there.
Thank you, and you can follow us at Billy. You say it because I always fuck it up.
No, Andy, don't even laugh, because it's a series. Like, this podcast has been going on now for nearly 4 years, and he still can't get it right. So like,
and I set up the page as well, which is worse. I set up the Twitter page. I don't know the handle. Go on.
Yeah. Anyway, it's @JB Wrestling 1998 on Twitter.
There you go.
Yeah, give us a follow. Give Andy a follow. Listen to both shows, because it's good for you.
Spread the love. Spread the love of pro wrestling. Thank you for listening.
Thanks for listening, guys.